All right, hello there. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you are returning. Today I'm going to talk briefly about the Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is a Russian novel that was published posthumously. Bulgakov died in 1940, and I don't believe this was published until his wife had it published for him years after he died. He tried to publish this. I guess this was written anyways during the Stalinist regime in Russia. I'm not going to hold this the whole time. I'm going to set that down. But anyways, this is not a favorite for me. Okay, I've been reading quite a bit of Russian literature lately, and in fact, I just recently finished Dr. Zhivago here by Boris Pasternak. And a lot of people, what I've seen, they don't like this book. A lot of people are down on Boris Pasternak. They don't like Boris. And the opposite thing is everybody seems to love the Master and Margarita. And you can put me on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is weird, maybe, because I actually liked Dr. Zhivago and don't really care so much for Master and Margarita. I mean, it was okay. It's all right, you know? But everybody's losing their minds over this book. Like, this is one of the greatest books I ever read, and I'm just like, it's okay. I don't get it. I mean, it's an all right book. It's okay. It's not. I just think it's overhyped to the extreme. Probably because it has a talking cat. I guess that's maybe the reason why. There's a talking cat named Behemoth, who at one point whips out a 50 caliber Browning machine gun and like shoots at some people. He drinks cognac and I don't know. He's wears horn rim glasses and stuff at certain points. Um, he's one of the posse of Woland, who is kind of the stand-in for Mephisto from Faust. Only, unlike Faust, Mephisto and Faust is not actually Satan, but Woland is the double. He's literally Satan. So when this book opens up, okay, there's a couple of gentlemen. One of them is named Berlioz, who is the editor of Masolit, or I guess the chairman of Masolit, guy that runs it, and he's having a conversation with this other gentleman named Ivan Nikolaevich, something or other. I can't remember his last name, but Ivan and he are having a discussion about Jesus Christ. And both of them profess that they don't believe that he actually existed. Okay, so along the way comes this gentleman. He's listening in on their conversation, and it's Woland. And he says, well, I do believe that Christ actually exists because I was there. Right? I was there when Pilate washed his hands. And of course, the Rolling Stones song Sympathy for the Devil, inspired by this novel, that's one of the lines. I was there when Jesus Christ had his hour of doubt and pain, right? That lyric made sure that Pilate washed his hands. So that's where they got that from. Of course, I'm not really a big fan of the Rolling Stones. Anyways, maybe this is wrong for me to say, but I actually prefer the Guns N' Roses version of that, which appeared, I think it was on the soundtrack for Interview with a Vampire. But unfortunately, that song was kind of like right before Guns N' Roses broke up. Axl Rose and Slash went their separate ways. But that's a whole other thing I'm not going to get into today. Anywho, the book's not a favorite for me. I mean, of all the Russian literature that I've read thus far, it would be at the bottom of the pile. There's a line in the book that's spoken, or I guess is a famous line, manuscripts don't burn. But honestly, I've read Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, and I actually prefer Ray Bradbury's take on censorship over Bulgakov. Maybe people are going to get mad at me for saying, I don't really care. Okay. That's just my opinion. I mean, it's kind of a similar theme here. The idea that art has the ability to open people's minds or give them a different perspective. Art can change the world. You know, it's essentially, the book is kind of like against censorship. Towards the end, you find out that like cowardice, Bulgakov says that cowardice is the chief vice, or he has one of his characters speak that towards the end of the novel. But the book itself, as I said, it's a political satire. It takes place in the Soviet Union during the Stalinist era. And Satan comes to Moscow, and essentially the idea is that he causes a bunch of mischief, walks around, causes chaos, does black magic. And of course, the people that are materialist in the Stalinist regime, they try to explain all this stuff away as being hypnosis, or through, you know, rational means, try to explain all the black magic away. So you got that going on. You have a book within a book. There's the man, the master. Okay, he doesn't actually have a name. The master is a guy that's writing a book about Pontius Pilate, and I guess it's supposed to be like the true telling of the gospel. Of course, it doesn't coincide with the actual gospel according to St. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that you find in the New Testament. So, yeah, the Jesus that's written about in the master's story about Pilate is called Yeshua HaNatzari, Jesus the Nazarene, essentially. And it's a Jesus that's basically, his Yeshua, right, is a philosopher, not really a divine being. He's not. He's just a guy. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Like, for me personally, being a Christian, taking my faith very seriously, I just look at this and go, well, this is a false gospel. Okay. But I suppose if you have a secular mindset, like, and you don't believe in Christianity, maybe you like this book more. Maybe that's why people like it. But for me, I could not. I know that's not the point of the novel. The point of the novel being that the Soviet Union like made it mandatory, or part of the mindset of the Russian people. Like, the party's official position is that Jesus never actually existed. So having Woland or Satan come along and say, well, he did actually exist, and I know because I was there, um, and then proceed to wreak havoc, and then promote the idea that evil exists. So if the devil exists, then there has to be a God. But the God that's presented in The Master and Margarita is very Gnostic. It's not like a Christian, an Orthodox Christian ideal, or even like, I would say even a Western Christian ideal of God. It's a very Gnostic presentation here, almost Manichaean. At one point, Matthew, Levi, the tax collector, who became a disciple of Jesus, he's like cursing God the Father, calling him an evil God for allowing what's happened to Yeshua HaNatzari in the book. Like, how could you allow this? You must be an evil God, which almost gets into like the whole idea of the demiurge that you find in Gnostic conceptions. So the book is full of black magic and sorcery, and I don't know. There's a vampire, a naked vampire that walks around named, I think her name's Hela, who is one of the posse of Woland, aka Mephisto, aka Satan. Um, so maybe that's where Mathilda May, that whole idea of, have you ever seen that? What was the name of that movie? Life Force, right? With the vampires and Halley's Comet, and Mathilda May's walking around naked, turning everybody into vampires. maybe that's where the idea that came from, was from the Master and Margarita. So maybe, the influence here, you see, at one point, like Woolen, Satan, he like turns, I guess he just starts throwing like money around, like money just like starts falling on people. It kind of reminded me of like that scene in the '89 Batman, Tim Burton, where the Joker is saying hubba hubba hubba, money money money, who do you trust? And he's making money. Me, I'm giving away free money. And it makes all the people like go crazy, and they're like all like rioting and grabbing the cash and stuffing it down their shirts and stuff. Very similar scene happening in the Master Margarita, where Woland is like making it rain. He's making it rain. He's the rainmaker, right? So the book has some like really memorable scenes, but the narrative just feels really disjointed. There are a lot of characters, and the Master doesn't really get introduced until about 30% of the way through the book. He's in an insane asylum, essentially committed himself because his manuscript on Pilate was not allowed to be published by the Russian authorities. And he's separated from Margarita, who was his love. Of course, they're both married, so they're having an adulterous relationship. And Margarita is like this bored housewife. And her narrative really doesn't kick in until like the second half of the book. So the book's divided into part one and part two. I'm not going to get too much into it, but she does end up becoming like a witch and flying around on a broomstick naked. And I don't know. The book is just very bizarre. Talking cats, um, vampires, you know. It's almost, I guess, what you would call like Russian urban fantasy. It's fantastical realism. There are aspects of the novel that like are totally dialed into the time of the like the Red Scare and stuff. I mean, like there's several references of people just disappearing or getting disappeared. Obviously, they're getting abducted and they're disappearing into the gulag, right? Like the Soviet secret police are coming and taking them away, but it's never explicitly stated that that's what's going on. Anywho, the book, it takes place on a Wednesday. It begins on a Wednesday, and then the culmination or the end of the book is on Sunday morning. So the book is coinciding with the events of Holy Week, right? So the book ends on Easter Sunday, which I don't know. It's just not the whole way of yeah, the book's dealing with themes of light and dark, dualism. Like it's Gnostic dualism. It's not Christian. So I don't know what Bulgakov's like religious ideals were, but I don't think he's a member of the Orthodox Church. I know Tolstoy was excommunicated for his views. He was actually deemed a heretic. But Bulgakov's ideals would actually be considered heresy as well. So I don't know what else to say about the book. It's again, it's all right. I guess people love it because of all the weird stuff, but again, like it was reminding me of stuff that I've read in Ray Bradbury. Like if you've read the book Something Wicked This Way Comes, like Woland in Master Margarita kind of reminded me of the carnival that came to town in Ray Bradbury's book. So maybe Ray Bradbury had read this and was inspired by it. I don't know. Because Fahrenheit 451 and Something Wicked This Way Comes are kind of like American versions of the Master Margarita, but I actually prefer Bradbury's, those two books, over this. Anyways, I got nothing else to say. That's my 2 cents. I'm not going to hold you and bore you to tears. I've rambled on for, almost 15 minutes here. I will say this. I'm going to be reading more Russian literature. I picked up Ivan Turgenov's Fathers and Sons, so I'll be reading this at some point in the near future. And I do plan on reading Gogol's Dead Souls, but I got a few other things to tackle before then. So let me know what you think about this one if you've read it. Maybe I'm totally off base. I'm not saying don't read the book. I'm just saying this thing's incredibly overhyped to the extreme, and I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum where everybody on BookTube loves this and hates this, and I'm on the opposite. And I like this book, and this one is just, it's aight. Have a wonderful day.